Welcome back to Cowboy Jojo's Adventures. Today we're going to take you on a tour around the Alexandra Goldfields. Commencing from Castlemaine, we're going to be going to Barker's Creek, Chewton, Fryerstown, Vaughan, Yapeen, Guildford and Mopoke Gully, where I hope to show you some of the relics and abandoned buildings that have been left behind from the gold rush. One only has to close their eyes and be able to visualize the scenes of that period. The Alexandra Goldfields were the richest shallow alluvial deposits in the world, and they were looted of its treasures. With the help of this booklet, Castlemaine and District Tours by Raymond Bradfield, I'm going to take you to some pretty interesting sites. So come along with us and let's see what we can find.
We, that is Jojo, Peter and Ruby, we're at Specimen Gully. This is where the Mount Alexander Gold Rush began in 1851, and this was on the land of William Barker. This was his pastoral run.
Christopher Peter discovered the first specks of gold here in this area and worked alongside his three colleagues, which was George Robinson, Robert Keane and John Worley. By November 1851, the area was swarming with gold diggers, unlike anything ever seen in Australia before.
Lots of gold diggers.
John Worley remained here with his wife Bridget from 1854. He moved away and lived in Lansfield. John's wife Bridget remained at Specimen Gully. At some stage, John and Bridget had actually separated. These ruins you see today was built for Bridget in 1870 by her son, Daniel Riley, which was her
son before she actually met John Peters.
Bridget lived here until 1895, and then she spent her last years in the Castlemaine Benevolent Asylum, dying in 1898 at the age of 78. The new owners, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, enlarged the house, as did the next owner, John Smith, possibly their son. Today you can identify the different phases of the house by the different style of construction. In 1931, John sold the house and the property for the Gold Memorial. So Peter, where's our next stop?
We're going to the abandoned Garfield water wheel. That's no Garfield, no water and no wheel.
Come along with us and let's go and check it out. You don't have to go very far in Victoria to find relics of the past, reminders of the old gold rush era. As you can see behind me is this impressive structure. It was built in 1887. It held a water wheel, 220 buckets, drove a 15-head stamp battery to crush quartz, and in its time was the largest water wheel in the southern hemisphere. It's a mighty wall, as you can see behind me. So in this area, there would have been a massive building to hold those 15 stamp batteries. They would have been banging 24 hours a day, echoing in the surrounding area. There wouldn't have been many trees around here because a lot of them would have been all chopped down. The mine ceased in 1911, not too long before the First World War. Wheel, whose frame was built entirely of timber, had a diameter of 72 feet and was very like in design to a bicycle wheel. We are now off to Water Gully Goldmine with its remaining poppet head and crushing plant. Come along with us, let's check this one out. The Water Gully Goldmine. Mining started here as early as 1853. It was built to a depth of 1,150 feet, and the mine closed around about 2010. And since then it's been abandoned. But as you can see, the poppet head and the surrounding buildings are still pretty much here and in pretty good condition and intact. This mine has had a rather wonderful history. There have been several companies involved in its long life, although the first real full-scale development began in 1876. I'm at the lonely grave of Elizabeth Escott. She immigrated to Australia in 1853 on the news probably of the gold and a better life. Her husband now deceased, she left her homeland, England, and immigrated to Australia with her 7 out of 11 children. In the following 2 years, both her daughters died. Fanny, who is buried here, at the age of 15 in 1855. And then the following year in 1856, Elizabeth at the age of 53 died. There's a lovely little note on it and I'm going to read it out to you. A tender mother and a loving wife, here sleeps my humble hope for better life. By side of daughter loved and cherished well, we leave the judgment day the rest to tell. As you can see, I'm just outside a little old miner's hut. This was built around 1867. It's actually classified by the National Trust, but I came here in the 90s and it was in better shape. So it needs a little bit of loving tender care if they wish to preserve it. I believe the National Trust has put its signature on it. So let's wait and see what happens to it. But it's basically a form of mud brick and stone and a bit of corrugated iron put together. But come with me and I'll show you inside. This is an area of Heron's Reef, which started in 1852 with a lot of alluvial gold mining and then moved to much deeper quartz mining. And I'll also show you a few of the forges that have been left behind. It's pretty much lots of shafts around and you've got to really be careful. You've got to stick to the tracks if you happen to be in the area.
Peter here. We, that would be Peter and Ruby, and Jojo's the cameraman, we are in front of the iconic engine house and chimney of the Duke of Cornwall mine. Now, the Duke was one of a group of mines owned by the Rowe brothers. The Rowe brothers were otherwise known as the Quartz Kings of the area. This mine was worked from 1865 until 1880, and there were some really rich yields from this particular mine when the shafts were dug. The shaft reached 961 feet when it was closed. 961 feet? That's a pretty deep mine shaft.
Opposite this engine house and up on the hill was once the home of the mine's manager. And nearby along the fence line is the small powder magazine that is about 6 feet in diameter and has a domed roof. And this is where they stored the gelignite to explode in the quartz that they were looking for underground. I'm at the Vaughan Mineral Springs, which was set aside in 1878 as the government understood the importance of keeping this protected. By 1925, they started putting amenities here and attracting crowds. So we've got a kiosk behind me. They also put a little railway line for the kids to play in, and as well as a rotunda. They said that the mineral waters here are supposed to be very good for you, especially all the elements that are lacking in processed foods. But you've got to have a required taste for this. There's magnesium bicarbonate natural mineral water with high levels of chloride, sulfate and sodium and iron. I'd have to get used to the taste. I'm standing in front of the old Yapeen Hotel and General Store. It was constructed by John Smith in 1856. John sold a comprehensive range of goods and services. It was also a post office. It sold boots and shoes. It had a bar, ran an agent for the Colonial Mutual Fire Insurance Company, and had a timber yard which offered everything that a hardware store offered. Eventually he sold it to his son, and today it remains as a private residence. Our next stop is Guildford, where we will see the old gum tree before finishing our day at Mopoke Gully. Guildford, and behind me is the big tree. It is about between 500 and 1,000 years old. Its girth is 3.25 meters circumference and the span at the top is 34 meters wide. I'm standing near the Mopoke Water Gully Water Wheel, built in 1887 around the time of the structure of the Garfield Water Wheel. This one, however, drove a 10 stamper battery back in its day. It ceased around about the 1900s. I'm sitting on the platform that would have supported the stamp batteries in 1887. And this is where I end my journey of searching for the old relics of that past era. So I hope you've enjoyed coming along with us on this episode, and we're sure to see you on our next adventure. Bye for now, folks.